I just finished a reread of Amazing Spider-Man by J. Michael Straczynski, Omnibus Volume 1. Welcome back to the Omnibuds Cafe. My name's Kevin. I want to tell you why I love this book and why I think it's the best Spider-Man run of all time. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, then grab your cup of coffee, and let's check out this book. All right, so here we are with Amazing Spider-Man by J. Michael Straczynski, Omnibus Volume 1. The art on this was almost entirely done, I think entirely done, by John Romita Jr. Really cool wraparound cover here. I'm trying to show you all that. I think that was from the 200th, or the issue 500, I think it was. But let's get into it. Little credits here. So the writer for the entire thing was J. Michael Straczynski, pencils by John Romita Jr. I was wrong. We also got some Mike Deodato Jr. And then on issue 500, it was really cool. We got John Romita Sr. in there. We got a bunch of covers done by John Romita Jr., a couple by Mike Deodato, and then a bunch of them by J. Scott Campbell. And I'll show you those because I think those are really awesome. But this starts on it's Amazing Spider-Man Volume 2, issue number 30, I think. So they renumbered it, a year or so prior to this coming out. And then they eventually renumber it when they get to issue 500, which is in this book. So an example of J. Scott Campbell's absolute awesome cover work right there. Just super spider crawly, creepy. Just his fingers. I really like how he does this. So we start off this story with Peter Parker, and I guess I'll say the through line throughout this entire book is he's been having some marital problems with Mary Jane, just some relationship things. And when we start off this book, Mary Jane is living in, I think, Los Angeles. So they are almost entirely separated. Almost immediately, we meet this new character named Ezekiel. And Ezekiel sneaks up on Spider-Man, and he oddly has abilities that kind of match Spider-Man's. He can jump around. He can climb buildings. He, of course, doesn't have his own web shooters, but he has very similar features that Spider-Man does. And we also meet this new character called Morlin, who is kind of creeping around and is looking for a spider to attack. But like I wanted to say, what I think JMS really got right with this entire run, not just this book, but the entire run, was this was really a story about four people. It was a story about Spider-Man. It was a story about Peter Parker's private life. It was a story about Aunt May, and it was a story about Mary Jane. So Ezekiel is hanging out with Peter Parker and Spider-Man. He knows his secrets, and he's asking some pretty weird questions, but some pretty serious, deep questions to Peter Parker about the spider that bit him. What came first, the spider or the powers? He asked, why did the spider choose him? And things Peter has never really thought of. So this Morlin character is ancient. He's got some. He's incredibly strong, and he puts Peter through the absolute ringer. Peter Parker is near death here at this point. You can kind of see him how beaten up he is right now. And who comes to the rescue but his new buddy Ezekiel? Peter, of course, has to solve this by using science, which is always really awesome. Here we are with Spider-Man just finally getting the upper hand on this new character, Morlin, and beating the absolute crap out of him. Spoiler alert, I don't put up spoiler alerts when I'm reading 20-year-old books because it's 20 years old, but Aunt May does finally learn Peter Parker's secret. It's been, 40 years of publishing that his secret identity was, oh man, So there's one thing that kind of in the middle of this first arc that happens, and I guess I should have said this run started in April of 2001, and I think everyone knows what happened in September of 2001. And there's a really cool video. I'll try to link it on the screen here somewhere, but it's of John Romita Jr. talking about what they wanted to do after 9/11. And I think Amazing Spider-Man was the first comic to really address it. And they did it pretty quick, too. I believe this came out in November, maybe a month and a half later. But just this black cover, nothing else on it. And, had nothing to do with the story, but amazing artwork, amazing words by J. Michael Straczynski. I think this should be required reading for every comic book fan. But it just talks about 9/11. It shows the heroes and what their response is and their emotional response. We get some really emotional imagery of Captain America and his response to an attack on American soil. This issue is all-time great stuff. Absolutely amazing. And then here we see, the heroes all together, the real heroes, and then the heroes we like to read about. So then we get back to the main story, where Aunt May has just learned about Peter's secret identity of Spider-Man. Peter has just started working at his old high school, which is really cool to see him kind of grow as a character. And we get an issue called The Conversation, and it's Aunt May confronting Peter about what happened. And I don't want to give too much of it away because it's a fantastic issue, and the things they talk about are really cool. And then we get over to what is not Aunt May, what is Mary Jane doing out in Los Angeles, Hollywood area. Really cool. Actually, I think this is the Nuff Said issue. So Nuff Said is, you probably all know, it just art, no words to tell the story. And this was a fantastic one. You kind of see Mary Jane's looking at Peter from afar, watching him on the news. She, of course, knows his secret. And Aunt May is trying to come to terms with her nephew, Peter Parker, being Spider-Man. And I thought, really emotional stuff, really cool stuff. She emails these newspapers and says, I'm unsubscribing because of your unfair coverage of Spider-Man, and just really cool ways that she chooses to support him. The next story, we get another new bad guy. So like I said, JMS does not lean into 60 years of, Vulture and Mysterio and Green Goblin and Hobgoblin and all his rogues gallery. He brings new, fresh ideas. So this guy is called the Shade, and he somehow exists, in the regular world, but then also in the astral plane. So Peter, I think it's this issue. He gets some help from, no, not this issue. He gets some help from Doctor Strange. Another cool character who I don't know if he's new to this or if he's been there before, but this is Detective Lamont, just a police detective who's working with Spider-Man on some cases, on kind of some B stories. But Spider-Man is trying to figure out who this Shade character is and why he's stealing people and what he's doing with them. So we get some, so Peter enters the astral plane. And like I said, I think he gets Doctor Strange's help for it. And like we started off with the character of Ezekiel, we get a lot of, weird questions about the mythos of the spider, and why did Peter get bit, and why was that spider there at that time, and why was it passing off his powers. More interplay with the marital problems with MJ. He's trying to meet up with her. Here is the one instance in this book where we get a rogues gallery character, and it's Doc Ock. I forget this gentleman's name, but some rich jerk who's trying to steal Doc's powers or suit, and it doesn't work out very well for Spider-Man because you get two bad guys fighting against each other, causing havoc. And then this issue is really cool because we see Peter finally meeting up with MJ. He flies out to LA to see her. But of course, it's Peter Parker, Parker Luck, bad guys are there, and he's got to put on the suit and take care of business. I think it's the end of this one. Spoiler alert, he's going to beat up the bad guys. At some point, when he is flying back to New York, he will... Oh, so here's another new character. This character is called Shathra, and she's also kind of like in that spider mythos type thing. I think she's a spider wasp was the story, and they are like made to kill spiders. And she was trapped in the astral plane in the previous issues when he was fighting that shade character, and she got a whiff of Spider-Man and came back to get him. So we might have skipped it already, but there was when Peter's leaving LA back to New York, he bumps into Captain America, and they get to tag team on some bad guys, which is always cool. More kind of... So as this Shathra character is going after Spider-Man, again, putting Spider-Man physically through the ringer. She's incredibly powerful. He's never faced her before. And he goes to hide from from Shathra and to kind of recoup, and ends up in a spider... I don't know, like a zoo or something like that. And there's a bunch of spiders, and they kind of encase him and protect him. I think that's Frank Cho. He always has really clean artwork, and I love his Spider-Man. So we get the return of this Ezekiel character. He finds Spider-Man and is trying to lure him to Africa, I believe. And I think he gets him there. And he's trying to help him beat this Shathra character. More just, really interesting conversations with this Ezekiel character who has these spider-like powers and is clearly older than Peter Parker, and asking questions that we've never really asked of the Spider-Man power and where it came from, and are there more? And MJ, I think, comes back to New York. No, this must be the issue I was talking about. So they're in the airport, and Captain America is there fighting some, I think they're Doom bots or something like that. Yeah, there it is. But really cool stuff, and really cool line. Mary Jane is like, "Are you going to introduce me to your friends? I'd really like to meet Captain America." Really cool spot. J. Scott Campbell, again, just super. I just like how it's the bubbliness of his art. The line work is really cool. Then we get another 6-issue run where Spider-Man is up against again a new character. This character is called Digger, or the Digger, and the rough storyline on him is back in the 30s or 40s in prime mobster timeline. 5 mobsters were hit and buried out in the Las Vegas desert, and there was a gamma bomb similar to what produced the Hulk for us, and that gamma bomb turned those 5 or 6 mobsters into this one entity called Digger. And he wants to go back to New York and take over his territory. Of course, it's 60 some odd years later, and Spider-Man's kind of the protector of New York, so they obviously have a run-in. Really cool art. I really like John Romita Jr.'s Spider-Man. I liked a lot of his early X-Men work. I kind of love or hate him. Like, I'm going to read here pretty soon his work on Wolverine that he did with, I think, Mark Millar. And I hated that art. I did not like how he drew Wolverine, but I think he does an amazing Spider-Man. So we're finishing up the arc with the Digger, and we are coming up to a pretty important issue. It is Amazing Spider-Man. I think we're getting there. Amazing Spider-Man number 500. Big birthday issue. Yeah, we're leading up to it. And so rough storyline is that Dormammu is unleashed by Spider-Man, numerous issues back when he was in the astral plane. That brings Doctor Strange to the table, and really you can see Scott Summers Cyclops, you see Thor, you see Iron Man to the table, and they're all battling Dormammu and the enemies that he's bringing. So here's issue 500. Super awesome issue, fantastic cover, and the end of a 3-issue lead up to this. And what's really cool is throughout this, you see throwbacks to older stories, older art. Let me try to find some of them here. You get I think this is the first time we see Spider-Man in this kind of future suit that we have now seen in the movies, the animated movies and such. Here's a throwback to him fighting the Vulture. And in the extras of this book, there's really cool side-by-sides of the, Stan Lee, Steve Ditko early issues, and then what John Romita Jr. tried to mimic for this retelling or this kind of historical look back at it. Him fighting Electro. And like I said, JMS doesn't lean on the Rogues Galleries. These are all callbacks, obviously Gwen and what's his name? Really cool shot here with a lot of his villains, old and new, some of the new characters that JMS introduced, and a lot of his old characters. Oh, this is what is his name? Harris. Really cool cover. He did all the artwork for Ex Machina with Brian K. Vaughan. So we kind of come back to a bit of normal, or what we could consider normal for Spider-Man, and we get the return of Ezekiel. And Ezekiel, Moore's coming out. He's kind of been kind of a shadowy character. We think of him as a good guy. We get I think there's 2-issue crossover here with Spider-Man and Loki fighting some lady whose name I forget. But yeah, we will eventually get back to Ezekiel, and Ezekiel brings him to Peru, and this is the closing out the first book, the Book of Ezekiel. And it turns out that Ezekiel is fearful of dying. There's been all these spider mythos kind of connected characters, right? We had Morlin, we had Shathra, kind of these new spider type characters coming after him. And what Ezekiel believes is that they're going to kill him unless he's able to make them go after Spider-Man. Well, Spider-Man has defeated all of them. So he thinks the only way that he can survive is if he kills Spider-Man. And so it turns out that this new character doesn't have the best of intentions. So we get a little battle between Spider-Man and Ezekiel, and we learn more about Ezekiel and where he's from and his history. And in the end, he kind of has a change of heart and saves Peter. As we get to issue 509, this story is called Sins Past. What we do here is we just stop reading, because Sins Past is a really, I really love comics, so I don't like dogging on stuff that I don't like too often, but Sins Past kind of sucks. It was just a bad idea, poorly executed. And it had since been retconned, so you just really don't need to read it. And I don't really want to go into why it sucks so bad. You can go watch some other video. But that's the book number 1. I really enjoyed this book. This is probably a run that I've read the most out of any other story. This might have been my 8th, 9th, 10th time through this. Welcome back. So, like I said, I think J. Michael Straczynski just really nailed the voice of Peter Parker. This book was funny. This book was exciting. There's a lot of action in here. And like I said earlier, JMS did not rely on Spider-Man's rogue galleries. We only saw Doc Ock. We saw a lot of new characters in this book. We saw a lot of new concepts in this book. And Peter Parker and Spider-Man were kind of put through the ringer, both physically and emotionally. What he went through with the saga with Aunt May learning his secret, uh, the marital trouble that he had been having with his wife leading into this book, and the through line of that kind of throughout this thing. I just think it was fantastic storytelling. There is one more omnibus in this run. I don't read them together necessarily because shortly after this, the last issue of this book, Spider-Man's going to join the New Avengers when Brian Michael Bendis takes over that run. It's back here somewhere. And it's nice to read the JMS book, Volume 1, then go check out his what's going on with him in the New Avengers. And while he's in the New Avengers, a lot of things happen. We get new concepts introduced by Brian Michael Bendis. They go through House of M, and then they go through Civil War. And Spider-Man by JMS Volume 2 has some significant lead up to Civil War, the tie-in issues during the Civil War event, and then the fallout from Civil War has major impacts on Spidey for years to come. So that book is equally amazing, and I'll review that, a few months from now when I get to it. But I think JMS wrote the best Spider-Man, the best Peter Parker, the best Mary Jane, and the best Aunt May story that we've ever had. Let me know down in the comments if you agree, disagree, if you think that the spider just fell off my shoulder. And do me a favor, hit that like and subscribe button. We love hearing comments. We love talking comics with you. We'll see you on the next review.
Hey, Omnibuds! Be sure to check out the Omnibuds Cafe and merchandise store where you can buy mugs, t-shirts, stickers. We're using earnings to buy equipment for YouTube and to fund more giveaways. Who doesn't like giveaways? So click the link in the description and start shopping.